July 14th, 2017. Guys, we've had the most powerful coronal mass ejection and solar flare that I've seen in a few years. This is a GOES satellite information, and what you're seeing is a proton flux event. This is showing X-ray flux, but it has everything to do with protons, which are contained in the coronal mass ejection that's headed towards our planet. Notice the 3 spikes before the large one. Those happened very quickly, and we're going to look at them, but they were short. This long one, the strong one, guys, lasted a long time. The longer that solar flare lasts, the more proton energy is pushed outward towards our planet when it's Earth facing, which this is the sunspot I talked about 3 or 4 days ago, that as it turned and came across the Earth's magnetic connection point with the sun, we were going to see this type of activity, and it may not be over with. But we're going to take a look at all that. This is very interesting. This is proton flux 5-minute data. You don't see this chart move unless it's an extreme event. You can see other flares, CMEs, barely move this thing. But this jumped. That's telling you the amount of protons, again, that's coming at us in this wave of energy from the sun. Here on the A satellite, the initial peak was here, and that took 8.2 minutes for the light energy or photon energy to come from the sun to the satellite. Then you start to see the green and yellow lines rise as the energy is behind that. That's just the initial burst energy. The coronal mass ejection has not made it to these satellites yet. It says a noteworthy event to report. Long duration M flare, G2 storm watch updated. Now, they don't talk about earthquakes. I do. Volcanic eruptions and earthquakes are going to be aggravated by this event. The flare was associated with a 10 centimeter radial burst called a 10 flare lasting 44 minutes. The entire flare was several hours, but that 10, what's called the 10 flare, was 44 minutes. This is looking at it from the back side of the sun from stereo ahead A. Just one image. We don't get a lot from those satellites anymore. Here is the problem. Check that out. We haven't seen one like that in a long time. Guys, in the video a few days ago, I said when the Earth, when that solar sunspot came across into the Earth's magnetic connection point, you see the black and white line right there? It did it, and this flare occurred. And we're going to stop this and look at some timing. Now, as I pause it, notice your timestamp. Earth is in the yellow dot. 12 o'clock Sunday UTC time. That's about 6 a.m. Eastern time Sunday morning. The CME is approaching our planet. But as we go 6 hours ahead on this chart, you can see that we're starting to get fully involved. Right there, 1800 hours. That's noon on the East Coast Sunday. And it takes a while for this particular wave to pass our planet. Notice on the right, the yellow dot and that large red area, that's the amount of proton energy that's going to be grazing our planet. This thing is powerful. This is the images from Cactus. This is LASCO C2, one of the cameras that we have on the LASCO satellite. Tremendous amount of proton energy. You don't realize how large that area is. Now, remember, you've got a plus or minus 7 hours on these charts. Cactus picked it up. Check this out from LASCO C2. Powerful coronal mass ejection. These are smaller bursts, and there's a couple small ones that you see right before this, and that's called a full halo event. In other words, it's expanding out, and it will completely encompass our planet as well as Venus. Check it out. We'll look at it again. Coming around, there's your first couple small bursts. You start to see the energy flow from that right side there, and then this. Same satellite, different camera. This is LASCO C2. Gives you a close-up of the sun. Check it out. You're going to see a couple flares start to come off that right side, and we're going to look at it closely on the SDO. But notice the energy there start to release. That was the first 3 events that you saw on that chart before the long flare. After this, you're going to see this CME emerge. We haven't seen one like this in a long time, that well defined. And those bright areas contain that proton energy. Check that out, guys. Amazing. With our weakened shields, I'm very concerned about this. So I'm not putting a quake watch out. I'm putting a quake warning out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Here, we're going to watch the event. One thing I want to point out, we have a filament that's snaking across that top left section of the sun. Very thin, but it's there. Now, this event lasted a long time as I slow it down. 44 minutes as far as the 10 flare, but several hours as far as the total event. That's why the width of the CME will encompass Earth for several hours. This is what the sunspot looks like now. It was to the left side of the sun, coming center in my last video. Notice something that happened. Not above at the sunspot, but on the very right edge of the sun. Those are those three small peaks on the proton chart that we saw before the long flare. Again, check that out. They were powerful within just themselves. What's on that side? We got Venus over there. But right here, and this is an impressive single shot coming from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, is the brightness of that flare. Now here is what it's all about. This is yesterday's chart. It hasn't been updated today. It's the Magnetic Connectivity Solarscape Viewer, and there's a notification in red. The Earth is 9.7 degrees from this active flare. This was yesterday. The Earth is in the blue dot. That represents our planet. It also represents the size of the magnetic tube that connects us to the sun. As the Earth moved to the right today across the sunspot, directly across it, we saw this happen. Now, of course, CERN was running hot, and they peaked about 3 times on their 13 tera electron volt energy burst. But you see Venus, Mars, Mercury there. But Venus, to the right, its connectivity point is exactly where we saw the first 3 points. It's an electric universe. Let no one tell you any different. This tube that you're seeing as the satellites circle the Earth is representative. This is just a drawing of that particular connection plasma tube, basically. But it's much bigger than that. It's larger than our planet. That blue dot that you saw on the chart before this with the connectivity point is the size of it, and you could fit several Earths inside that blue dot. Now, what's happening over at CERN as they're tuned into the ground currents that we know of, we've seen for the last 2 years, they had to dump energy here. Both beams are back on standby, but look at the power they were running. Very impressive burnouts. You can see through your timestamp here coming out of the 23rd and going at 0200 hours. Everything picked up after this flare. Now, there'll be secondary pulses from this. As the coronal mass ejection gets here Monday, I'm sure they'll be tuned in to pick that energy up. We've seen too many times, I don't care who says that it doesn't affect it. You might as well take that argument somewhere else. I've got 2 years of documentations of the Earth's shields collapsing during these high power runs. We're watching it. We'll update that CME tracking. There's a couple of other satellites that will pick that energy up possibly an hour or 45 minutes before it strikes our Earth, both the ACE and the Discover. We will monitor this very closely. Now, Sunday night at 6 p.m., we're going to be live with Paul Begley at paulbegleyprophecy.com, and these are some of the things we're going to talk about, and this happens. Remember that plus or minus 7 hours on the incoming CME chart that you saw as it rotated around means that you have kind of a wide window. They don't know the exact speed of some of these ejections until they pass like the ACE or the Discover satellite. We'll get more information there. But so this thing could, any time from Sunday at noon until Sunday at midnight would be a window for this to happen. So during this live show, I'm going to be watching the charts coming in from the ACE and Discover satellites, unless the CME is already passed at that point. But usually it's 7 hours later, not earlier. These things tend to be a little bit late. But again, join us Sunday night, 6 p.m. Central on paulbegleyprophecy.com. It's going to be a great show. It always is. It's a heads up. Be safe.